The Chicagoland tournament is one of the most successful and one of the first regional tournaments that started in that now legendary summer of 2013, 9 years ago. With us is Rob Spatz. Uh, just had another rousing success, and the 2023 event is already planned for July 22nd. Rob, thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Jeff, I really appreciate the opportunity. Talk about one of my favorite things in the world, Chicagoland, APBA, and all things in between. So thank you.
Of course. It feels like yesterday. I remember when Doug Schuyler posted, it was April 14th, 2013, on the Delphi forum, and he said, "Hey, let's get together, even if it's four guys." And so I jumped on the phone with him, and he just talked about how this, it's really going to come together. It's like really one of the first. Robert Henry was coming together. They just had theirs yesterday. Just got back from there. These tournaments are so important, and you guys really led the way in a kind of a large scale, one of the leaders. And I'm just kind of curious if also, you're great at the social aspect of it. Great recaps. Kurt Berglund did a great recap. Tom Nell
Yes.
Shopping started attending with the winter. Are you still doing? You're one of the, or one, we're one of the only two season ones.
Um, I was. My wonderful wife, Kathy, in her infinite wisdom, said, "You will wind up in a rubber room if you keep doing two." Literally and figuratively. Yeah. And I would love to do one in the late spring and one in the mid fall. It's too much for one person.
Mm.
When we get to this kind of magnitude. When I and you mentioned, what it's become, to take a little step back at the history of where I come in Chicago, and I started in 2013, like you said, where there were five total entries, which is mind-boggling where we've become now. Um, I attended my first one in 2015, so I missed the first go. To give a little recap on how I got involved, my dad, who is called Pops. A lot of you know him. You'll see him at a bunch of these regional tournaments as well with me. Long story short, he was having flooding in his basement and said, "I got a bunch of your stuff here if you want it." And my cards, my APBA cards, were amongst the things that got rescued. And I looked and I'm like, "Oh, wow." Because at the time we were in the computer one, BBW.
All right.
Um, it transferred that just because of the stat keeping was much easier. Um, so I, had been on Facebook. I said, I wonder. There's groups for everything on Facebook. There's gotta be a group for Apple. And sure enough, there was. And the timing kind of was perfect because it was about a month before Doug was having the 2015 one. So I went, um, or no, it might have been 2014, it might have been 20, but regardless. But I went, had a great time. It was 2014 was the first one I went to. That's right. So 2015, I'm attending, and Doug says to me, "I'm going to be giving up the reins. I think you would be a one." Yeah, I think that is probably the look I had when Doug made the proposition for me to take over Chicago. Now, it was my second tournament I've attended at all, and being told to take over something where at the time there were 32. There were 30. I made some out. So there were 30. I mean, it had grown somewhat exponentially in that short period of time. And I was like, I don't know what. Yeah, whoa. So long story short, I did take it over. But obviously, I wouldn't be here without two people, Jim Saska and Doug Schuyler. And Jim is one of those people that I would love to meet just to kind of pick his brain. I've never had the pleasure. I know he's out in Virginia, and I would love to meet him. But But before we go any further, that's kind of where I kind of took over with Chicagoland, would have been 2016. So
And so now next year's theme is the Lonesome Loser. Have you heard about the Lonesome Loser to get the
and that's what I
title?
actually put on my Facebook. The theme is, have you heard about the Lonesome Loser? Yes.
So I'm just kind of curious, talking about the history. Let's jump to the idea of kind of the rules. Jack Dolan talked about his no wiggle rule. Uh,
Great
I,
rule, by the way.
it's absolutely essential.
It
Uh,
is.
when you took over, had you already talked with Doug about some things that this is a must keep rule? These are, I don't know. Have you?
Um, we didn't I'll be honest with you, we didn't we talked a little bit just about, just some of the general things. When I took it over, I had a couple of thoughts that instantly jumped in my mind. At the time we were having it at a historical society in a relatively far northern Chicago suburb. Um, at the time, there were people at the tournament that I was at before that I got offered to take over. There were people that had come in from California. There were people that had come in from Canada, among some other place, Ohio. When I took it over, the first thought that went in my mind is, okay, we have people that are traveling great distances. We need to centralize this a bit more.
Hmm.
We need to have this at a hotel, and we need to have it at a hotel near O'Hare, the big airport in Chicago. Um, Found a great location for the time when I did take it over in a town. Maybe it was, I'm trying to keep it more, not too regional, but it Des Plaines, which is, it's not, maybe not even 10 minutes from the airport. They have shuttle service, they have everything. Very accommodating. A lot of the hotels in the area charge an arm and a leg for one, and then two, they have food requirements and minimum stay requirements and things like that. The place that we had it was great. So that was my first goal. I said, I need to, before I get into the tournament specifics, the theme and all that, I need to have a centralized location that people can come in, they can fly in or take a bus, as Tom Nelshopen does. He takes the bus from, and they have a shuttle service that takes. I said, need to have something that if people come in, they don't have to, they're paying a great expense to come in. I don't want to add to the expense with that. They need to get a car or find a, pay Uber or whatever to get to where the hotel is. So that was my first thing, and at the time that was great. And cursing and a blessing, we have outgrown that. Where we went to for last year's tournament was the Hilton in, I think it was the Hilton. It was either the Hilton, the Hyatt. I get the Hilton and the Hyatt confused. But the Hyatt, um, basically went from a place that if we had more than 50, we would literally be on top of each other. And it was very cramped spaces. Where we're at now has the ability to accommodate, probably, I've heard like Kurt Berglund mentioned, probably can accommodate close to 100 people. So the space is there. It was a great location. Um, so that was the first thought. And then I said, okay, now we got the place. Now we got to think about the specifics of the tournament. Um, I'm not one for playing superstar teams.
Mm.
This last tournament was like the first, because we had that step back because of COVID. I said, okay, let me kind of open it up and try to grow some numbers. So we did um, the research. I was trying to find a good kind of open-ish theme, and I saw that on some article there was like three eras. You had the starting pitcher era, where it was basically a 44, where there was pretty much you had some relief pitchers, but it wasn't a, you know, where you'd see guys went 9 innings plus, and then there was another one, 45 to 90, where they called it the closer era, where you started getting relief pitchers. And then they had the specialty area, 91 to today. So I said, 45 to 90, that's going to be a really good range. Open it up. So we did that. But at the time, I like to have non, I don't want to see the 68 Yankees and the 27 or 68 Tigers against the 27 Yankees in the final. The 20, again, the 2017, 18, 19 Dodgers, the 2020, it's all good and well, but I had one of the themes I did was you had to find a team that had a 4-man rotation, and you could have the first pitcher could be any grade you want. Second one was capped at a B or better. Third pitcher a C or a D, and you had to have a D starter
Mm.
as your. And I did a sub 500 tournament. Um, I like to have the more obscure teams come in. It makes it more fun because it's like, oh, I forgot about that team. They're actually not too bad. And with that you get some, quirky moments where, we did a sub 500 tournament. Eric Berg had run the table in the round robin play, and he was playing one of the was I think it was Kyle Daniels that had a Houston team that started Jose Lima, who was a DZ that year, in the first round of the playoffs and shut him out. I mean, you see stuff like that, that's what the tournaments are about. Where you see Eric would disagree, but but trying to find good themes, that was one of the first things that I did. And then you mentioned, Geoff, about kind of centralizing the rules. Most of the rules that were in place were pretty straightforward. One of the Chicagoland rules is, no J4 start. They come in the sixth inning. If they don't have J ratings, they have to have at least 100 plate appearances. The starting pitchers need to have 100 innings plus 10 starts. A lot of that stuff was already in place. Depending on the tournament and the eras, the relief pitching might, I did a modern era tournament where starters can, usually the Chicagoland rule is starters have to go 5 innings unless they get downgraded. We changed it that you can pull the starting pitcher in, because when you have like 5 or 6 superstar relief pitchers, yeah, you can have them come in. They're going to be capped at an inning max, but yeah, you can, if you want to take a guy out in the third inning and just blow through your pen, you have that option. But most of them are 5 innings. The the dice rules are always a little sketchy, where I know Jack had mentioned people stacking the dice and doing the light. It's a great rule. I always say, if you got a question on that, let me know, and I'll stop by and I'll take a look. And I've had instances where I've had to tell people, you need to adjust your rolling. I've had people that will roll in an inordinate amount of time and tell them, we got to speed it up because we have time constraint.
Yeah.
People have flights to catch and things like that. But that was, as far as the rules go, and if I'm rambling on, I apologize. Like I said, this is the thing I love to talk about. So,
Absolutely.
so that was the other, and then the third thing, and for me the most important thing when I took over Chicagoland, was try to make it as much of a event as I could. People come in on Fridays, and just real quick, just to talk about, we had 40 initially I had 51 people sign up for last tournament. We wound up with 47, which meant I had to roll. I
Yeah.
prefer not rolling, but I'll roll if I have to. But just to rattle off the list of where people came from, we had people coming from Canada, Nashville, Jack Dolan and Carroll, South Carolina, Florida, Missouri, Ohio, Wisconsin. I actually live in Wisconsin, but there's other. I moved Michigan, Indiana, Minnesota, and Central Southern Illinois. So it's pretty surreal when you think of mentioned the first one in 2013 that had 5 people. Well, we have 11 states or 10 states and one foreign entity represented. So it's pretty surreal when you get that kind of people want to travel, but people do travel, and I said, okay, people are coming in Friday night. We need to do something regardless of what it is. One of the blessings on where we are now, we're literally 1.2 miles from a minor league stadium, Chicago Dogs, that Jack had the hat on. Chicago, that's a style of hot dog.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a Coney dog or whatever. And we were fortunate that they happen to have a game going in town that Friday night. So we shuttled everyone over. Enough people had vehicles that we were able to get everyone there. I think we had 18 total that showed up, just ahead of time. My wife came. And that's the other thing too. People have their spouses and their kids. Let's have something that we all can go and just have like a little mixer or something ahead of time. And then post tournament, I always try to do some kind of, tournament dinner. We had probably, my goodness, we had 38 that stuck around. And it's funny because when I think of like the early Chicagoland, a lot of times people would finish their games and they book out.
Right.
At the championship game, I would say outside of the handful of people that had travel arrangements, everybody stuck around to see the championship,
that's important.
It is important. It's really humbling because it makes you realize, wow, even if you're out of it, people do care who want to see the results, and having 40 people plus hovering around watching 2 people roll APBA is pretty crazy if you think about it. But no, so we did pizza this year. We've done regular restaurants and things like that. I had a couple options in mind, but from when I booked the event a year earlier to when it was now, there were there was one other pizza place and there was an Outback Steakhouse literally adjoining the hotel, and they both shut down because of COVID. So
did you miss any? How many tournaments did you miss?
Good question. So 2019 was the actual last Chicagoland we had before this year. Did have 2020 scheduled for June, or no, it was July. In March, I just made the executive decision. I said we need to pull the plug on it. And in a bit of karma, the person that had the first pick that year was Tommy Matthews or Tommy Gordon, who wound up with the 40th pick this year and took the 76 Reds that swept the table. So, in a little bit of karma, I got going from the first pick to the 40th pick. Come on, and there you go. Also goes to prove that a good, and the 76 Reds are a good team. The fact that they fell in the 40s is mind-boggling. But yeah, we missed 20 and 21. Um, it seems that, we had some Zoom tournaments and things like that. It just, could we have done something in 20? Yeah, probably. Would I, and knock on wood, no one had any reported health issues, when we had 48 of us in cramped quarters. And, you know, as a tournament director, that's the first and foremost thing. You want to make sure everyone not only has a good time, but gets there, gets back safe. That's, and we've had issues in the past that people have had flew into the airport an hour south of O'Hare where they need rides and trying to get logistics to get them there and stuff. There's a lot of, stuff involved, and I love it.
It's
So,
great. That's yeah. I mean, it's the tournament directors. That's the burden that you shoulder, and you do it
yeah,
willingly. And it's and
absolutely.
especially this year. I mean, it just like John Cocker was saying yesterday in King of Prussia that everyone really needed this. It was and especially this year. So
Yeah,
great job.
definitely.
Great job pulling that. Now, since you've got your notes here, but not to put you on the spot, I just wonder if there are some other great moments, some of the throughout the course of your time with the tournament that kind of really stand out.
In Chicago, well, one of my personal moments is, and I got to show it right there.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
nice.
Oh,
Michigan.
yeah.
But that's me. And just real quick before I get into
Sure.
for me, um, I've been to a bunch of these regional tournaments, and they are all outstanding. I gotta get my cheaters here. Prairie Land is a
Yeah.
great one, which is getting back on. Dave Cagle is taking it over.
Mm,
Um, my brother from another mother, as I call him, Kurt Berglund in Wisconsin. That tournament,
yeah.
I remember. I've been to every one. I remember it's very Chicago-esque because I think there was maybe just over a handful of us at the first one, and he's looking for a little bit of a bigger place. I think we had in the 20s,
Wow.
close to the 20s last year, or this year. He's doing it. He's taking over the reins of doing two a year. So God bless you, Kurt. You can
Wow.
handle that for now. The Scholes brothers in Slippery Rock. I've been to that.
Yeah.
Very happy for Ken getting the Hall of Fame. Not a more deserving individual than they talk about people that pour their heart and soul into it that they do. Ron Amp, I'm going to my first Glass City later this month, so he's
Nice.
been to a handful of the Chicago ones, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. It's always nice to go to a tournament and play to win instead of focusing on. But
Yeah.
one that stands out, obviously, not just because I won it, but because of the man who passed to Rich in Jackson. That is the people say Chicago. I mean, for me, that's the gold standard. He runs a superb tournament. Unfortunately, I do a lot of traveling now in March, so I can't make that one. But it's if anyone wants to go to a great tournament, all these are great, but Rich has been doing it for a lot of years,
Yeah.
and he does it well. I've never been to Chris White's in Vegas. That's another great one. I am going to my first national
All
next year,
right.
so I'm looking forward to that. But just as far as like the Chicagoland moments, God, I don't even know where to start. When seeing a D pitcher, Lima is one of the great Chicagoland moments. Seeing people like Vince Bianco, who was in my um, computer league and had never really played the card and dice version until we sat down a couple times.
Nice.
Take a team. He's a numbers analytics guy. Take a team that he never even really saw until I got it for him and win the tournament. You know, um, things like that's a great one. Just seeing father and when I'm with my dad, taught me this game at like 5, 6 years old, and to see like having the Zavillas, Zach had been to mine. He had his first time. He had a semifinal run. He's always had pretty strong, except for last year. But and seeing Larry and Clark Eichman, who are regulars at nationals, and they're Chicagoland staples. Seeing Clark again come close, losing in the semifinal. But seeing father son, husband wife Madeline Vanicelli and Justin Schubert. They're I call them the king and queen of Chicagoland because they and it's just the friendships you make. I tell people I see the tournament circuit regulars. I mean, obviously before COVID, but I would see them more than I would see members of my family, just because it's a tight knit group.
Sure is.
When you get a bunch of people that my wife would say, I wish I knew you were into this before we got married. Sorry, honey, but yeah. So I mean, would I go to every tournament if I could? Yeah, I have
Yeah.
to. Um, kind of slow it down a little bit, but and kind of pick and choose. But
Sure.
as far as like, God, I mean, just seeing teams that shouldn't be on the cusp of making the playoffs, of the 48 teams, I would say probably 36 of the 48 were the last game meant something as far as making the playoffs.
That was amazing figure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, it was really, 5-4 or 5-3 made the playoffs or like won the division, and that was Clark Eichmann's, and he wound up rolling to the finals. This it's hard to pinpoint exact things, and I'm sorry, Jeff, but there's just so many. It's just the people, that's the thing, just getting to, and that's part of the reason why I don't like to play. I like to just go and mingle with the people, and
Exactly.
I try to make it so when I, and one interesting thing when I took it over, um, it was a lot of like 4 team divisions, and like you would play the same team 3 times. So,
Right.
and another thing when I took it, I said I would rather have bigger divisions where you're playing more people,
Yeah.
so you get to know more people. That that to me is important. It's just you know having people come in and saying, you know what, this is like Jack Dolan. He's been to national, but saying he came here to get pointers for his turn. You can do this tournament. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got handed the rein. And people say, oh, I live in Texas. I don't have. I live in Arizona. I live. If you build it, they will come. Believe me. And it may be slow. I mean, you might get not even a handful, or you
Yeah.
might get a handful the first time. The first one's not the hard one.
Right.
Having that second one's the hard one. It
Well said.
really is, because you'll see that there's going to be people, word of mouth in this is and that's why I'm so big on, you mentioned, Jeff, about the social media aspect.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have the numbers I would if I didn't push and push and push to get some people. I know Pop says, God, you put out a lot. I'm like, yeah, I do, because if I don't, people are gonna, it's gonna out of sight, out of mind. And the fact that we're 49 or so weeks away and we have 39 people committed to something,
It's great.
that's crazy. I mean, it's mind. I mean, I would love to get another 21. I'd love to get to 60.
Wow.
I'll
Yeah.
take what we can get. We were almost at we technically had 51. I think we can get to 60. I mean, that's a huge. That's a big number.
Oh
That's a
yeah.
big number.
Well, and with the restrictions are kind of still lifting, and people are getting a little more
Yeah.
comfortable. So
Yeah.
I mean, the annual I think went from 50 and 21 the first one back to, I heard about 100 this year. So yeah, I mean,
That's a big tournament.
and
That's the
with,
reason I got to go.
now you've got people coming from California. Are these people who are like you doing the circuit, or are they kind of some, kind of Chicago area expatriates, Illinois,
Um,
some
one
connection, or
of
just
the one that came when I took over. I didn't have anyone from California this year, but Dan V. Uh,
oh yeah.
he came just he had just retired and said, I love playing APBA, and I heard Mike Miller, who he passed away somewhere. He lived in like the Napa Valley. He made it a point to come because it was on his bucket list to come, and he made an impression on a lot of us that remembered
Wow.
Double M, Mike Miller. Howie Mooney has come to a couple of ours. The great Howie, and Howie, out of the goodness of his heart, does do the envelope. One of the things I do is I
Oh yeah.
have him do a honorary envelope.
Nice.
I don't have it.
Brilliant.
My
Love it.
stuff's put away.
Sure.
I'm getting. If Ron's watching, I'm getting ready. I got my 2005 Cleveland Indians. I've been rolling some games with them.
Oh, nice. Well,
But yeah, I mean, a lot of them have, Ron and David come together. Dick Lazinski and Steve come from South Bend area. You got a lot of guys that carpool together that come somewhat regularly or travel together, and the fact that get the day of the tournament, I get probably an 80 to 85% RSVP rate for the next tournament. That is pretty awesome. I've had people say, I have some things that have come up in my personal life that I can't do as many tournaments as I want, but I'm coming to Chicagoland every year.
nice.
And that it's humbling. It's very humbling, when you hear, I don't take praise too kind. I appreciate it, but it's almost embarrassing. But it's a good embarrassing. It's like I'm not one to just sit. I always want to build and let's make it better. What can I do and make it better? I'm thinking if we get the numbers of actually doing T-shirts for next year, something like that, which I see you got your T-shirt on.
Yeah, they've got yeah. I mean, but I love the envelope. That's a great wrinkle. The
Yeah,
trophy. I mean, all these.
yeah,
That it's raising the bar, definitely, like you said. That second
yeah.
one and subsequent. So you're really doing an incredible job there.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you.
So going back to learning APBA at age 5 or 6, I mean, and that's one of the big things. I mean, the Robert Henry, the Bridesburg Boys and Girls Club is kind of the reason they do that.
Yes.
So as a 5 or 6 year old, of course, being of our vintage, if you will, there weren't as many
Mhm.
distractions as there are today. I know there
Absolutely.
are youngsters playing today, and they really get into it. I mean, they do. It takes a kind of a certain kind of kid anyway. I mean, did you have friends who played? Were you mostly a solo player up until a certain point, or?
I basically just played with my dad for the longest time, or would just I think of what my dad did, and I mean, he had like original 56, 57s and that. And instead of writing what team they were, we would separate them by position, throw them, like multiple years, and just be like, okay, let's blind pick guys, and not, yeah, in retrospect, that's probably one of the dumbest things we've ever done. Uh, but, well, the other dumbest thing was after my first tournament, I had all these original teams. I'm like, I don't need this. I'm going to sell it. And I did. I sold so much of the original stuff for
Wow.
like dirt cheap, which I get. Ignorance is of the law is no excuse, as they say. But yeah, but believe me, my wife will say I got more than enough. But it's never enough. But I just lost track. but yeah, at a young age, we would just play game. I instead of like going into the in scoring and stuff at that, it'd be like, okay, these numbers that are like 1 to 11 are really good, and that's a hit. I followed baseball very young, obviously, and I would get understand the basics, and obviously at a young age it's good when you don't have to say roll each one. Oh, that's strike one, that's strike two. Somewhat instantaneous. Um, we I think we just at the early age just played like fielding two or something, just like not even deal with, he plays an outfield, just kind of dumb it down a little bit just to get the rudiments down.
Sure. Yeah.
And we would play, and then as I got older, my grandfather on my mom's side, who lived near us, would play as well, and we would just do a little thing. And then one of my dad's high school friends actually had a league that was looking for some new members, and I was 16 when I started my first playing actual league, and that's,
Wow.
oh, now we got to get serious kind of thing. So um but yeah, I mean, I still play at home by myself. I have a couple people that like Kurt Berglund, I've met and played a couple times with him, stuff like that. Just any excuse to roll is always a good thing.
You're rolling with folks. Your dad is in his 70s. Has he been to any of the annual tournaments? Because they go back to 73 in Philly, and God, I can't imagine trying to win there now.
He
In-
he actually, I remember he had one that he hosted. It had to be like the early 80s. And it was like a one or done thing. I was like 10 years old or something probably at the time. So I mean, that was kind of cool. We just kind of threw it together, but it was a one and done thing. And I never asked him why it was only a one and done thing. But yeah, I mean, that's really the only thing he's done. I went to the first one myself, and then after I went to the first one, I said, "You're coming with me," because he's a gamer. He's in a tabletop basketball league, a tabletop football league, a tabletop horse racing league. All three
wow.
of which I used to be in. I don't have that anymore. Um, and we were in, unfortunately, we had a situation where our league had to disband last year after, and it was the same league that I was in when I was in 16, when I turned 16. So
Wow.
just numbers thing, it just got too hard. And unfortunately, my situation with the leagues is not uncommon, where you just start seeing a lot of the older leagues just members drift off or what have you. And unfortunately, it's hard to run a league with that had it 10, 12 people at a time down to four now. It's like, yeah, we just kind of pull the plug and maybe look into it next year kind of
Sure.
thing.
Well, hopefully, I mean, these the regionals are maybe helping to rebuild a pipeline. I mean, that kind of, once you get in the room with other people, I mean, it can be, I've said it before, it can be a little intimidating, a little shocking if you've only played solitaire. And it's just like,
Yeah,
wow, it's really
yeah.
like
And
what
then you come to like a Chicagoland where you got like 50 other people. It's
yeah.
like, and it doesn't dawn on me that kind of like, because there are a lot of guys that they only play solo,
Yep.
and you come there and it's like, whoa, it is a bit overwhelming at first, but that shock after you're done with starting to roll your second game against your second person, all that shock is done away. And I think like Jack Dolan had mentioned when he talked to you like that, he had never played that many games in a day, even solo,
Yeah.
because usually you play, one or two games, you're good. Yeah, move on. Unless you're doing like a full replay where it's like, okay, I got to get a bunch of games down. But yeah, I mean, like me, I'll play one or two games and I'm good for, I got other things to do. But yeah, it is, if you've never been to a tournament, regional tournament or national, I if you enjoy rolling the game, you will love. I have yet to run into anyone say that has said, I 100% regret my decision. Why did I do that? Everyone, you get the bug and you look forward to the next one by far.
And I'm glad, yeah, I'm glad you put it that way too. Yeah, because that I remember when we did our Canton thing, I remember we were talking about it a year before, and there was kind of some I heard some, people were thinking like, yeah, well, it's great if it happens. So like you said, it trickles in, it does build up, and once it snowballs. So it's don't ever let that be a deterrent for anyone who's thinking, if I don't know if there is a region that's uncovered. Thank you, Randy Corrier. I mean, what he's doing with the newsletter, it looks like there are at least 3 dozen regional. It's amazing.
In the last few years, that part has blossomed as far as just like seeing, Chris took Vegas not even a hand, 4 years ago, I think was the first one he did that. Um, Jack Dolan's got the South Carolina one, which maybe next year. This year
Right.
I'm all used up for my travel stuff for this year and the first part of next year. But yeah, South Carolina, Carolinas is a great region, yeah, Virginia, but South Carolinas are good. Obviously you got the National Georgia. I know Frank Fumai is looking at doing something in the Florida region.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm trying to, really the only untapped one I can really think of is like the New England area
Yeah, that's
off the top of my head. Which, of course, I lived in upstate New York. Now it would have
oh,
been great. I would have something up there, but that was 10 years ago. But yeah, but yeah, I
that's
mean,
funny.
that would be a really good untapped. I would tell people if you're in, Boston
Oh
or
yeah.
even upstate New York where I was, Syracuse, whatever.
Oh yeah.
There's a need. I know that they're also talking about a Canadian tournament too.
Gotta happen. Totally gotta
That'll
happen.
have that is probably the biggest untapped market for which I mean you would think okay, APBA hockey, for sure, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
you wouldn't, but there's a lot of baseball guys up there, a
Montreal term,
lot of
sure,
baseball
sure.
guys.
It's interesting. Yeah, our Jackals, New Jersey Jackals independent team plays Quebec, I think, and Three Rivers up there, Trois Rivières, or something like that.
Yeah,
Speaking of upstate New York, I mean, uh, after we did our Canton, I was hoping to do like an app in the Apple. I mean, but you mentioned the hotel costs, so maybe we get a slum it on the Jersey side. But actually, Cooperstown. Did you get to Cooperstown?
I've been to Cooperstown before, yeah, and I mean, I lived 3 hours from there. So I didn't have to deal with it. But I know the hotel costs are not cheap around Cooper's. It's kind of like similar to Slippery Rock, where there's not a lot of hotels around there, so they can dictate the seller's market. And unfortunately, that's one of the down. I had to raise the price of the Chicagoland tournament. Just I guarantee you, I am not getting rich and getting ready to retire running a tournament. I break even and barely a little bit more just to cover,
All right.
incidentals and things like that, like
That all.
pens and pencils and things like that. Yeah, that adds up a little
Well, that's
bit.
a great point. Yeah, I mean, because you've got to. I mean, I imagine you tell people to bring, not just their teams, but their books, but you've got to have the tournament director's stockpile, the trunk
Yeah,
full of stuff.
dice and I got my printer there. I print out a bunch of score sheets. I got books and books, plenty of them, stuff like that, pens and at the old hotel I'd be, supply snacks. Unfortunately, the new place is not so accommodating on that. So there's some give, some take. I get it. But like I said, I think where we're at with the Hyatt is a best case. I heard way more positives than that. I mean, obviously there were some negatives about, costs. So, yeah, I got to pay $4 for a pop. It's like, yeah, I get that. Yeah, I know. But overall, and now that I've moved to Wisconsin, this was the first time I actually stayed overnight at the hotel.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I will never, I do not regret that decision. It just made life so much easier.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it beats a work conference. I mean,
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
going to get up that
yeah.
early, you want to go down and at least play a game. Huh?
And we did have, just speaking of conferences, dumb luck that someone that, and I forget the person's name, but Ron Emp had written about it. There was an actor from a little TV show called The Mandalorian that was staying at the hotel, and they saw like Ron was rolling a game or something, and just started a conversation, and they came down to the tournament, him and his significant, and started talking to some of us, and it just, yeah, it's just, you mentioned about work out, yeah, it's just bizarro world sometimes,
Yeah.
that type of stuff. But no, I love Chicago. I love talking about Chicago, which obviously your listeners are probably like, okay, we get it, you love Chicagoland, but no, it's a great, I love it. I love it.
That's
It's a labor of love.
that's a great segue. I was actually born in Dixon, Illinois, which is
Oh
about
yeah.
90 miles away. I was only like 2 when we left, but we actually then moved to
Yeah,
Wisconsin.
it's a
So
not even 90. Yeah, we actually, it's fun. My wife and I will actually go down to Dixon area just for like day trips, just to go. It's a great little
which
getaway.
which which brings up the idea that you don't, you're talking about the cost, but you can make a whole if you've never been to Chicago or you really want to spend the time, it you can bring so much more into that in these destinations like yours. It's a lot to do, like Chicago hot dogs, places like Hot Dogs and the Wiener
Yeah,
Circle. What is
yeah.
the Chicago dog? Our realtor told us the house is from Chicago, but what is the Chicago dog? Very specific.
So it's a all beef hot dog on a sesame seed bun that's steamed, that has mustard, relish, onion, celery salt, pickle spear, tomato wedge, and sport peppers.
Nice, nice. And what's the best
Most
one in
people
town?
don't do the whole thing. I usually do mustard, relish, onion, celery salt.
All right.
But that's me. But no ketchup on a Chicago dog. That's the big sacrilegious no. And I think the rule is, and until you get to double digits in age, it's not allowed ketchup on a hot dog. They'll let it slide for kids under 10. But no, there's a, and I'm glad you brought that up. When I decided to do one tournament a year, I decided to do it in the summer, just because there's, you know, I know like Dick Lazinski and Steve Zauer wound up going to a White Sox game that Sunday. It gives people, and I think one of them went Friday night to the Sox game as well. So you have that, and that's why I try to do something that Friday night and try to do something that Saturday night afterwards. And because, you know, there's a lot to do in the general area. There's a big entertainment area that is right where we're at. I was actually there the night before. They, on the Thursday nights, they do a free concert series that features basically the top of the line cover acts. They had a tremendous Elton John one. The night we went, it was a band called Atomic Punk, which is a Van Halen tribute, and they're amazing. But it's free to get in. The food and beverages are relatively dirt cheap. And then after the 2 hour free show, they sync up 10 to 15 minutes of fireworks based on the artists they have for free.
Nice, nice.
So it's right there, so that, and then there's all just a ton, the lake is not too terribly far from there. You got
They do
downtown
too.
Chicago is you're right down the road from train service that'll get you downtown, things like that. There's a lot to do. Um, and I think I'm blessed because having Chicago to make it a destination. And I know this year probably was the lowest amount of couples and families that went, but
Hmm.
usually like Dave Rueck almost always has his whole crew come, four of them. He just drove down with Joel Shaw because his wife had other obligations or something. Um, but no, it's a great, if you've never been, people say, "Oh, Chicago safety."
Oh,
We're in a very safe area where we are. That being said, it's a great. I tried. I've given people tons of suggestions on where to go, what to do, things like that. I've basically on and off been in the area my entire life, and there's enough people that can give plenty of free advice.
also,
Also,
you've got the Lou Malnati's pizza. You've got the
that's
Italian
where
beef.
we wound up go, and then we wound up going to Lou Malnati's
Nice.
afterwards yeah, and then yeah, I mean, you could just do a food circuit within, you got that, you got, really, really good authentic Mexican places, not
Oh
too
yeah.
terribly far from there. You can go down to Greektown, you can go down to Chinatown, you can go Little Italy, there's so many, there you will not go hungry, there's oh, I'm not in, I'm a vet. There's tons of really good vegetarian places too,
Nice.
right down. I mean, whatever your cuisine, they got it. And you're not too terribly far from it. If you like Indian food, they got that not too far. Everything, food, Italian, the pillars are the Italian beef, the Chicago dog, the Chicago pizza. That's the big three, but they got everything there.
Also, can't forget cheeseburger. Billy Goat. They
Oh
still
yeah,
around?
yeah.
Billy Goat's still there under
Billy
the
Goat Tavern. I was
yeah.
saying the goat.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, there's another place that's actually really good called Paradise Pub, which
Okay.
was actually down the road from the old hotel. Now it's about 2.5 miles away, but they do a fantastic cheeseburger there too.
Nice. Awesome. So many, plus they do the river tours, not to dwell too much on it, but they do like the nice river tours,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, they have. And if anyone ever wanted to do that, let me know because I got yelled at by my cousin who runs the biggest riverboat tour. He said, "Wait, you went? You didn't tell me? Made you pay full price?" So yeah, that's definitely. It's probably from where we're at. If you want to take the train down, it's probably, I would say not even an hour, just short of an hour each way, and that train runs round the clock. It's
Yeah.
it's a pretty relatively safe train for what that's worth. Another thing too, we have literally and figuratively directly across the street from the hotel is a casino.
Nice.
Literally and figuratively, yeah. I forgot the big elephant in the room that you see as soon as you open the door. There's a casino there. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot to, like I said, there's a big entertainment center that's right next to that's adjoining where the ballpark is. They got a comedy club. They got a bowling alley. They got a tiki bar. They got 5 or 6 different restaurants there. They got indoor skydiving there. There's a lot,
Awesome.
and that is all. And there's a shuttle, I believe, that will take you from the hotel there if you stay there. There's not, you will not just say, I'm just gonna sit in my room and roll, which you could do. That's fine,
Yeah.
but you will not. There is plenty of opportunities to do stuff, and That's why I do it in July.
Yeah.
It's a great time. May get a little hot at times, but it was a little hot this year. It was like 90, but we're inside rolling. But
Well, it beats trying to, you don't want to get caught in a winter situation where you
no,
got to, yeah.
and I've had fun going to Jackson in March, and yeah, that's at times it is a little dicey, icy at times. But
Yeah.
yeah, you will not worry about being snowed in with Chicagoland going forward. So
Awesome. Awesome. Cannot wait. I've got to get out there one day. You're doing
love to
such a
have
great
you.
job.
Thank you.
What about just one last thing? Personal thing. What is your favorite Chicago sports movie?
Chicago sports movie. Wow. I don't even know how many there are of Chicago sports movies. God, what are my choices? Chicago sports movie.
I don't know.
Uh,
I only ask.
I could give you Chicago. I mean, The Blues Brothers is my all-time favorite movie. That's
Nice.
Chicago.
Heck yeah.
Chicago sports. I guess it'd have to be Eight Men Out.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Because I can't think of another Chicago sports movie other than Eight Men Out. So
Well,
there
you
you
got
go.
the Brian song,
no,
I suppose.
I take it back. Brian song.
I was just yeah. That's
Brian song. Yeah, that without a doubt number one. It is a sports movie, but it's not a sports movie.
Right.
Yeah. But no. Just in closing, I'd love to. I really appreciate your time, Geoff. Thank you. This is a great thing that you have. I always forget, is this a podcast? Is this just a broadcast? I don't know what these things are called. I mean that, but it's great. I've seen a few of them. It's great. I appreciate the opportunity that you gave me, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Great host. Get out to Chicagoland. Let's get him to 100. He cringes.
I got room. We got room.
Nice.
Come on over. Thanks, Geoff.
Yeah, Rob. Take care.
You take care. Thanks, sir.
All right.